Look up the word crazy in the dictionary, and you might just find an asterisk beside the definition that says, listen to the Subiquitous podcast featuring Sue Duffield, and you'll find out what crazy means. Sue's travelogue journey of unfiltered stories, impossible miracles, and faith-filled fun will be revisited right here. So buckle up, and let's get going with this humorous travelogue of an unfiltered saint, Subiquitous.
If you're looking for an acclaimed voice actor or someone who is a profound expert, okay, you're not listening to one right here, but you will in a few minutes. Joe Loesch is a spoken word producer with over 30 years of experience in the voiceover industry. And what I love most about this man is that he's one of the most approachable people person types you'll ever meet. Not only was he the great voice of national commercials and video games, this is great. Cartoons, are you kidding? Corporate narrations. He's voiced also several cartoon characters for Disney and PBS Kids and produced the Baby Looney Tunes sound books. Joe, I don't even know what to say after reading all of that and realizing that you're my hero. You are absolutely my hero, and it's a joy to have you on the Subiquitous podcast today.
Well, you are so sweet, and it's my pleasure to be here with you today, and we're going to have a good time.
We are. I know it. So I sent you an email earlier. You have to have in your arsenal a funny story revolving around maybe voiceover work or something that you've done as a faux pas or a blooper. If it's any help to you, I want to tell you what mine was first, and maybe that'll give you some time to think. But I remember trying to introduce Gerald Wolfe of the Greater Vision Southern Gospel Group, and I waxed eloquent trying to introduce him to a group of about 150 people. And I had said before that, I said, we are so honored tonight to have what I would call, Jeff and I are going to kind of be the preamble to tonight's wonderful Southern gospel music with Gerald Ford. And Jeff went immediately into dun, 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 dun. I mean, it was, and that went viral because that was on YouTube, and I was known forever as introducing Gerald Wolfe as Gerald Ford.
That's actually a great way to set yourself up, for recognition. Nice.
So have you ever said anything?
I do have a little story. So I'll back up in a little bit, but the story comes more recent. So in the 90s, when I was producing music and recording characters for Disney Channel, Bobby Goldsboro wrote these scripts. Bobby Goldsboro, of course, you and I know, he was
That's
a
right.
famous country music star around the 70s,
Right.
60s into the 70s. And so now Bobby was writing these scripts for PBS Kids, Disney Channel, and I was recording the soundtrack. So I'd been recording these actors coming in all day long doing their parts. And so about 11 o'clock at night, we're still working on this project. And Bobby turns to me and he says, man, that evangelistic praying mantis didn't give me at all what I was looking for. Where am I going to find an evangelistic praying mantis at this hour? And I said, yeah, the Reverend Mantis at your service. And he said, oh, that's great. Get in there and do that. And so that was the beginning of like 12 voices in 6 different cartoons.
See, you and I grew up with Warner Brothers cartoons.
Oh, sure.
And while everybody was watching, like my brother, with a bowl of cereal with no milk in it, with the milk on the side, because he didn't like to have soggy milk in his cereal, he was watching. But you know what I was doing as a kid? I was listening to Mel Blanc.
Oh, yeah.
And I was listening. So what were some of the early influences then on you as a kid to be able just like that to pull out an evangelistic praying mantis?
Well, my Saturday morning hero was Mighty Mouse.
Oh, yeah.
Here he comes to save the day. and that it was fun to watch those things. I think that's why later on in years when I would be a spoken word producer, back in the 90s, all of my audiobooks had various characters, had music and sound effects, but it goes back to theater of the mind from the 1940s when people would sit around a radio and listen to their favorite shows. And people at the radio station would be doing the live sound effects.
That's right.
And so that's where all of that started for me, with just getting me enthralled with radio to begin with.
Wow. And it's hard to teach this culture what it was like for you and I to literally have nothing but storytelling going on in our houses. How are you able to give light to some of the younger ones that you teach and coach the art of storytelling? How are you able to give them an inspiration, because you have that background, but they don't necessarily?
There's a lot of truth to that. I see it as, you can say a phrase, like, let's see, it was a cold and windy night. So you can say it was a cold and windy night, but you can say it, but that doesn't mean I necessarily believe it.
Right.
And so I teach people to use pre-sentences before they start off cold in a script. So it was a cold and windy night. Okay, so, I think back on this time. Use a pre-sentence to get you into the script. I think back on this time, and I remember it was a cold and windy night. So it gets them into the storytelling mode. But it's easy to point out to somebody who's just reading something or just saying it. But it's very easy to explain. Now, why would somebody believe you if you just said it and didn't feel it?
It's exactly right.
See, I was born in St. Louis area, Maplewood, Missouri, 2 blocks off of Route 66.
Wow.
Off of Manchester Boulevard. Manchester Road at that time was an alignment for Route 66. And then I was a ventriloquist at that time, from age 7 to about age 10. And so here I was back in these days when my pals were out playing baseball and stuff like that. I was at home coming up with voices for my dummies. And so you look back on these times, and even when you weren't thinking that, hey, God's going to take me on this next trip, or, he's got control of you throughout your whole life. And you go back, oh, thank you, Jesus. You took me the right way.
That's exactly right.
I was learning all these character voices and stuff at a very young age that would help me later on, much later on in life.
That's right. Wow.
So we moved to Los Angeles when I was 12. So I grew up out there. And growing up in Los Angeles in the 60s was a mecca. It was wonderful. I had a Honda 50, and I rode up and down Highway 1 on my Honda 50 and down to Palm Springs. And it was great. But it's a different world now.
Right.
It's a whole different world. I'd much rather be here at home in Nashville, because Nashville feels like this is where I was supposed to be.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt.
I'm getting a little bit off track, but
no, you're not.
We moved to Los Angeles, and later on, I would trade in my dummy for a guitar because it worked out much better on dates. Just one rude remark from the dummy, and the date was over.
You're done. You're done.
You're out of here. He's out of here. And so, so I started playing music in high school. I had a trio. We used to open for the Smothers Brothers at the Ice House in Pasadena. We played all over Southern California. Eventually, I was studying acting at the Pasadena Playhouse at that time, too. And Agnes Moorehead was my acting coach.
Oh, my word. Oh, goodness sake. My all-time favorite, Bewitched. Just great.
Yeah, Agnes was... I didn't call her that then. I was a teenager. She was Agnes Moorehead. Yeah. So she was Miss Moorehead.
I was going to say, yeah.
But I can call her Agnes now because I'm older than she was when she was coaching me.
That's a thought, isn't it? We don't want to go there, but that's okay.
Yeah, but I did go there. Oh boy.
Wow.
Can we get Jeff to edit that out?
No, you can.
So anyway, I learned a lot from her. Do you know, this is something that'd be fascinating to you, and you may not ever have known this about Agnes Moorehead. every time I saw her, she had a Bible in her hand.
Oh, Joe, that just flips my mind. Go ahead, keep going.
Doesn't it kind of send a little chill up your spine?
I can't. Wow.
And, me being a teenager, I didn't think to ask her why or anything like that. But I think back on those days and I think, well, maybe it was, it could have been the fact that she was brought up as the daughter of a preacher.
Oh, my.
She was a preacher's daughter. I think he was more of an evangelist, sort of like a circuit rider type, And so she grew up knowing the Bible. Now, here she was years later playing a witch on TV. So I thought maybe she really had good biblical sense, but she also, maybe she used it as a protection.
It could be.
Playing a witch on TV.
Right.
As much fun as it was all in fun, but still, there's some truth to it too.
And you wonder if she got any backlash from her community over that.
Well,
hard to know.
I think if there was any backlash, back then it wasn't as stringent as it would be today.
Right. True. Mm-hmm. These are great stories, Joe. Keep going. Anything else that you can think of growing up in California and your start there? Anything else that comes to mind? I just love these things.
Well, my trio consisted of myself, Will Seltzer, and Pete Strout. Pete was our stand-up bass player. I played guitar, and Will and I sang. And then later, maybe a few years later, after high school, Will started landing roles on Hawaii Five-0, Barney Miller, and he was. What was it? Oh, he was a mass murderer holding Mary Hartman hostage in a Chinese laundry. And so it was great fun, just to see Will advance like that. He did, what did he do? Baby Blue Marine with Jan Michael Vincent. And
oh my.
He did The Wizard with Fred Savage and not Mardi Gras. What was the 50s movie?
I know. I can't think either. Well, we can edit this.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay. So there's one of those brain things.
That's okay. It happens. I know.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So the obvious joy came from your parents, maybe. I mean, what happened as a young kid growing up in your home? Was storytelling a thing? Or was there comedy a thing?
Mom and Dad were just funny people.
Oh, there you go.
They were hilarious. And Fred and Wilma Loesch. Mm-hmm. So here they had to grow up with that. Although when we moved to California, my dad went to work for a man named Dino.
Oh, goodness sake.
So Dad was an upholsterer. He worked for a man named Dino.
This is too weird.
And it was right down the street from a rock quarry.
You cannot make this stuff up. I'm telling you.
No, it's all true. This is true stuff. Of course, wow. My little sister's name was Leah. It wasn't Bam Bam.
I was going to say that. Oh, that's so funny. Oh, my goodness. And Pebbles. Here's the cool thought. I think I read a book a long time ago that we all kind of have this communication way of doing what we do. You have used ventriloquism and obviously your voice and your comedy and then your acting ability. You've used everything that's brought you to this point. There's a great book, Joe, and if you haven't read it, it's called Everyone Communicates, Few Connect by John C. Maxwell.
Okay.
And he talks about the difference between communicators and connectors. It's not that we're being judged here, but you and I both know when someone has a message, something they want to say, they'll do all they can to communicate. But it'll only go so far until you get to that point where it connects with your audience. I have never, in all of my broadcast years and all of my time being on a platform, I have never thought about speaking to thousands. I always think about speaking to one. And Joe, that's what you have done. You have created an arsenal of understanding that you're speaking to one person whenever your audiobooks, and I've listened to a few of them. When I listen to you speak the audiobook, I feel like you're talking to me. And this is something that I kind of gravitated into by accident. But had I known you 20 years ago, and I wish I had, I think I would have taken your course and maybe it'd been better. But I'm so grateful for what you're doing now. Talk a little bit about what you're doing currently in Nashville.
Sure. I have produced all of Dave Ramsey's audiobooks for past 15 years.
Wow.
And it's interesting that you made a point about talking to one person. Because, see, I may get one of his presenters in here who has written a book. There was Chris Hogan. There was John Acuff.
Right.
Gosh, I had produced John Acuff when he was with Zondervan Publishing years ago.
Good
and then
guy.
he winds up at Dave Ramsey's for a while, and I produced a couple more books for John. But see, when I work with people like Rachel, which is Dave's daughter, Rachel Cruz, or Chris Hogan, I just want to make sure that they realize that when they come in at first, because they're not professional readers, professional audiobook readers. They've got their own thing, and usually they're presenting to hundreds of people or even thousands of people from a stage.
Right.
So my job with them is to make sure that they know they're talking to one person today.
Right.
Because if you're addressing 500 people on a stage, you're not going to connect with that individual if you can't make it more personal and bring it to them.
It's exactly
And
right.
so that makes a big difference to them too. And if I see that they're kind of getting into their presentation type thing, I may stop them and just say, bring them back down again.
Yeah. Right.
Focus on this person.
Right. And podcasting for me in the last 5 years has really honed my thought process on one person.
And you do a really great job with it too. I love how listening to your the people you have on your show and listening to their stories and how you connect with them. That's all very important.
It is. I appreciate that. I know one of my frustrations, and I'm sure I would love to be with you at a conference, just sit next to you and watch how people introduce the speaker, either for good or for bad, right?
Yeah.
I got to just tell you this one story, and maybe you'll have something that you can follow up with this.
Sure.
We were at a church in Delaware one Sunday morning, and a typical church service always has the preliminaries. And I'm not paying attention. We're going to be the special group that morning singing, so I'm not paying attention. I'm looking down at my feet, or I'm getting into my purse or something. And all of a sudden, this person starts to talk from the platform. And the first 5 words, I went immediately to attention. And I went, what is that voice? Who is that voice? And how did he grab me within the first 3 seconds? And suddenly I realized, Joe, this gentleman, born-again believer, loves Jesus with all of his heart, is one of the #1 Philadelphia sports voices on Comcast Network who goes to that church.
Well,
and Jeff and I are sitting there going, does this not make perfect sense? Every church in the world should have a professional presenter or someone who within the first 3 to 5 seconds grabs the attention. And it's not necessarily what he said, it's how he said it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It goes back to that phrase. It was a cold and windy night.
See that? Yeah.
See, what I try to get across to my students is that if you can't pull your listener in within the first sentence or 2, depending on how long the sentences are, if you don't pull them in, you've lost them.
Yes.
Their mind is somewhere else. It's gone. So you have to. I want you to. I'll give them an entire script. And I said, but I want you to focus on the first couple sentences. Because if you can pull them in, you can make the words mean, all the words mean something. They're there for a reason. Say the word the way it's intended. And don't be on the same the same tempo. I want you to break up your tempo, because if you're at the same tempo and you're talking to somebody for several minutes or even hours, their minds just kind of sway.
Drift.
They'll nod off.
Right. That's right.
If you can find a way to slow that down to make an impact from here to there, that adds entertainment value to your script, and it also adds to your storytelling, and it keeps the listener entertained.
I know that there are a few people that are listening today. In fact, I know personally, Joe, that are subscribers to the Ubiquitous podcast, that occasionally I get an email. They'll say something to the effect, always was taught and always was told, I guess is the word, that I had a good voice. But I've often wondered about getting into voiceover work.
Sure.
What I can't wait to do, and I need to do this, is come to your Mojo Thursdays, the third Thursday of every month, correct?
Yes, yesterday. You missed it.
I missed it. I was where I was? I was sitting in a dentist chair. That was not fun.
And today actually is Mojo Friday.
Mojo Friday? You have a Mojo Friday?
The first and third Friday of each month, I put out tips and tricks for voice actors. And my YouTube channel is youtube.com/Mojo Friday.
youtube.com/Mojo
Joe
Joe Friday, right? Is it MOE or
no
okay.
MOJOE.
Mojo Friday. That is so cool. Well, there you go, folks. Seriously, you need to check Joe out, not only for that, but for other reasons too as well. But this is it's just an amazing way. Did you ever think as a kid that you'd be making money today by speaking?
No.
Did anybody ever tell you you need to get a real job, Joe? I mean, that's what.
That's not going to happen.
No, that's never going to happen.
No, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
You're right.
I left Los Angeles. Well, I didn't actually leave it. I was drafted. I was in Vietnam, 1968, 69. And so I met my best friend there, Woody Bomar. And Woody and I have been playing in this band, the Road Crew, for 20 years, almost 20 years now. But had I not met Woody in Vietnam, and this is another God thing. Because, see, when I went to Vietnam, I was gunner on lead Jeep for a convoy.
Wow. For
convoys.
Yeah.
And with an M60 machine gun. Mm. I did that for the first 2 to 3 months that I was there. And on Christmas, I put on a show for the guys on my LZ at Christmas, and the company commander sent me to Saigon to audition for command military touring shows. And that's where they put GIs together to go out and entertain troops where it was too dangerous to send USO shows.
Wow.
And so I got that. And so I traded in my M60 for a guitar, and I was out the rest of the year. I was out entertaining, and actually for 3 months I was entertaining throughout Vietnam, from the Mekong Delta to the DMZ to the Cambodian border to the Tonkin Bay. And I was so blessed because God took me out of this one area, put me into another. And then I wound up staying, instead of going back to my unit after that tour, they kept me in Saigon, and Woody and another guy in the unit there was instrumental in getting me reassigned. Wow. And so I became the director, and I was putting shows together. And I even pulled a few of my buddies that I knew in high school out of the field, got them out of harm's way for a few months so they could go out and entertain.
This is a movie. Joe, you need a movie of your life. This is just a movie. It's great. Wow. We have talked many times about the fact that Jeff skirted having to go into the military. But he often had said, had he had the chance to be in the military, he probably would have gone the music route to entertain the officers. So there's nothing wrong with that. That is brilliant, actually.
But see, once I got back, my manager that had booked me around California before I got drafted put me in a band called Solid Gold. And so I ran Solid Gold for about 6 years. And we recorded for KTEL Records, Solid Gold 50s, Solid Gold 60s. And I got to record and travel throughout the country. We were playing on the rising stage at Disneyland. We played in Las Vegas, opening for Waylon and Willie and the Boys. And I played with Paul Anka at the Sahara for a while. I was so blessed, just so blessed to be in the right place at the right time with the right skills that I needed at the right time.
Right, right.
But that's all God.
It is God. Yeah. And it's also your gifting and your talent and your anointing that you have on your life, that it doesn't surprise me that everything you've ever done has revolved around your voice. So when somebody asks you the value, what part of your life was the best, I don't know if you could even probably put a measuring stick on that, but it's all, like you said earlier, it's all come to fruition. You're using all of it.
I've been very blessed, like I said. I moved here in 81 to go to work for Loretta Lynn. I worked for her for a few years. Got to record with her in at RCA Studios with Owen Bradley. And then, before I moved here, I was audio engineer for Air Supply, Firefall, Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, and in Denver. They'd come in and work on demos and songs. And I just met so many interesting people throughout my life.
That's amazing.
And later on, I would do the special effects for Garth Brooks on the Thunder Rolls. And
I saw
worked
that.
on Emmylou Harris's Cowgirl's Prayer. And, it's just been so much fun. I'm still enjoying the ride. I'm having a great time. I've got a great wife. We are so blessed to have each other. I thank God for her every day.
I know it. Lori is a gem. Talk about her for a second and her gifts. This is amazing. Yours is audio, but hers is visual, and it's just amazing, her gift.
Her art is, all of her art is based on scripture. And when she's painting, I just leave her alone because that's her time with God.
Wow. Oh, my.
And she'll talk about the paintings and what they mean and the strokes that she had nothing to do with, that he was leading her every step of the way. Wow. She says, I don't know what's going to wind up on that canvas when I begin, but he's in control. And so now she's doing, she just had a display at the Brentwood Library for the month of October.
Right.
And her artwork is on display at Sweetwater's Coffee at Lenox Village right now.
Nice.
Through March.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That's great. Right here in Nashville. And especially if people are coming through, and we have several listeners that make Nashville kind of their vacation spot. They need to check this out.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Let me put in another plug.
Please.
Lori Loesch, LOESCH.art.
Got it. And she's so pretty. You married way up, Joe. Seriously.
She is adorable. I know. I really did.
I should have her on by herself. I think I will. I'll call her and we'll have her on down on a future one. But
I know she would love that.
Oh, it'd be great. But the road crew is so fun, and that's got to be a whole new outlet for you to once again keep your skills of being in a band. And here you are, you're over 39 like I am, and you will never ever turn down a gig, right? Because it's just so much fun.
That's true.
Tell us. I mean, I heard you guys in Franklin, and we're sitting there going, "This is great."
Oh, well, thank you.
You really do a super job. Tell us about the music you do and some of the places you're going to be singing and playing and performing.
Okay. We love to play at Fox and Lock and Leaper's Fork. That they've really got that audio down. The lights are down. Good. It's all good. Now, Don King, Jason Harmon, Woody Bomar, and myself have been together as the road crew for almost 20 years now. And we are the official musical ambassadors to Route 66. Right. In 2011, we were presented with the Bobby Troup Artistic Achievement Award. And Bobby Troup wrote Get Your Kicks on Route 66.
Isn't that something?
So they had to get the approval from his estate, and they presented us a complete surprise in Amarillo, Texas at the International Route 66 Festival in 2011. And they brought us up on stage and presented us with this award, and then gave us the proclamation of being the official musical ambassadors to Route 66, which was a big thrill for me because it's been a part of my life.
I was going to say in St.
entire
Louis
life.
and all of that. You just see again. Here we go. Fred, Wilma, Dino, Route 66. It all works together.
Yeah.
And if you were to put all of these things on a map, right, and all of these positionings that God has taken you through, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, as we close on this one, my favorite thing to talk about is how important, Joe, is your faith in everything you've ever done.
You know, it has become stronger and stronger each year.
Mm.
My wife is such a godly woman, and I don't hesitate at all to say that she also helps me to stay on the straight and narrow.
I was going to say, that's a good thing, right?
Her discerning heart over the years has kept me out of a lot of trouble. She'll say, Joe, you probably really shouldn't be doing business with this or that,
Wow.
And it proved to be absolutely right. You have to be listening because God talks to us every day. He's always talking to us. If you can just be still and hear his voice, it'll be a blessing to you in whatever you do.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Well, not only are you the ambassador to the official Route 66, but I have now claimed you as ambassador of Ubiquitous Podcast for 2025, just because of the value of your personhood and the value of who you are. And I know about you more than we know each other personally. And everyone I've ever talked to, Tammy Heim, who used to work for Thomas Nelson, Leanne Eaton, who is one of our mutual dearest friends of all.
And whose husband is now playing with the road
and
crew.
Roger.
Roger.
You know what? Let me tell you something. You know what you have in the value there.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
One of the greatest guitarists here in Nashville ever.
Yes.
But all of that aside, and we had one shot where we were all together one time. I think we ate at the mall there was... we had dinner together.
That was Paula Dean's.
Paula Dean's, right. And we just some fun collaboration of mutual friends that really didn't know each other, but we knew about each other. And Jeff and I got in the car after we left, and this is what we said to each other. Joe and Lori, without question, not only are you wonderful people, but you know what? It has never gone to your head. It has never gone to this place where I've done this, I've had these accomplishments, but you are just an amazing, approachable connector. And I thank you for being that, because you and I both know we live in a town that sometimes a lot of this stuff goes to people's heads.
That's true.
And how are you as a facilitator now and as a teacher with young people who want to become VO artists and want to use their giftings? How are you able to share with them?
You mentioned something earlier about people having a good voice, being told they have a good voice. I would say that 9 out of 10 people that come to me, they come to me because someone told them that they have a good voice.
Right.
So one thing I ask people when they arrive, I'll say, yes, you have a good voice, but do you know how to use it?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so that kind of sets people down and opens their ears right away and their willingness to learn.
Right.
Because most people don't like the sound of their own voice. They say, well, I can't stand my voice.
Oh, yeah.
I say, well, I didn't like my voice in particular when I started doing VoiceOver many years ago, but people kept hiring me. So I got over it.
You got over it real quick.
And you can get over it too.
That's right. I had singer's remorse the first time in 1971, when the first time I ever heard my voice on tape. And I went, I don't sound that way, do I? Oh, that's awful. I sounded like, hey, I can't get back. But I used character voices later, just imitating myself and what I sounded like as a teenager. I just am so grateful that your voice is not just something we hear, but it's felt.
Oh, well, thank you.
And it's not only felt because of the value, it's felt because you have a higher purpose. And the people that you associate with every single day in this town who need light, you're a light to the world, not only to our ears, but to our hearts. And I appreciate you so much taking your time.
That's very kind of you. I think that we need to have an open ear. I had a student the other day, and she just felt like opening up, and how she and her daughter had been estranged. And I thought, well, this has nothing to do with our lesson, but God put me here for a reason at this time, for this story, and for me to listen. And we all have a part to play.
That's right. There's no greater way to end this than what you just said. Thank you for being light.
Thank you for having me, Sue. I appreciate this very much.
Well, and I'll have you back. And you might just see me sneak in on a Mojo Thursday. I think I'm going to do that.
You're always welcome.
Well, I would love that.
And tell Jeff he's welcome, too.
I will. Well, you know what? He's too busy. That's not true. All right. Much love to Lori, too. And boy, Fred and Wilma, you did a good job. I'm so proud of you and what you did with Joe.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot to me.